soup. Oh, I got some soup here. Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me, I have some more RPG horror stories. Man, I gotta say, I'm feeling so good right now. The emotes are kind of broken a bit, but I'm feeling super elated. Like, I feel like I have a spark in my chest, the fire in my belly to just keep going and making more content. I just want to say thank you guys so much for the warm welcomes back. For real, this community that we've developed here, these silly videos that we do, it's like a home away from home away from home. It feels good. I'm feeling really good doing this. So, let's get to doing some more RPG horror stories for today. She does not want to be your next vampire overlord. Why does that sound like a light novel or like some sort of an anime? It has literally an anime name. I was looking for a book I've been missing for a while among my things, and during my search I found a character sheet from way back in D&D 3.0. Took me a couple of minutes of reading over the sheet to jog the memory of what game that was in, and I felt my stomach turn. Thus, I remembered. It was a party of 5 players plus the DM, but the only ones that are really immediately important to the story are the DM, myself, and a girl I'll call Naira. That was her character name. IRL Naira was only 17 when she joined the game, and she was of a genuinely nervous disposition. Nice enough, but her anxiety was such that she could be easily bullied into doing things just not to upset people. The game was pretty normal, Ravenloft adventure. The group had actually completed 3 whole modules and was level 13. At the beginning of one session, the DM started to explain his next story arc. It would begin with dividing of the party, a dark ritual, and the plan was for Naira to get transformed into a vampire and assume control of a small undead army and functionally become the villain of this next arc. Immediately, Naira was overcome with anxiety. This was definitely not something she wanted for her character, and she expressed such. The DM insisted. I finally had to chime in. Hey, I know it's kind of your brain baby, but you really want to do that storyline? Does it have to be her? Well, the way I have it written, she's the one I would need, DM said with surprise and a little annoyance. Well, screw it. If you want to do that storyline, I'll be the vampire. If your players don't want to do something specific for the player character, don't be overly pushy with them. Like, suggest to them ideas and stuff, that's completely fine. But if you're being a little bit pushy, there's something that's called a pushback. And some people, it can be, especially when it comes to the being more anxious disposition, it can be a bit more of an outburst rather than a pushback. I'm fine to stand my ground and say no. And I think people should be definitely practicing the ability to say no to things they're not comfortable with. But in a situation when you have a character that is more of a people pleaser, I'm assuming, and less of somebody that stands for themselves or stands their ground, I can see the situation becoming a involuntary subject, so to speak, to someone's machinations. Does that make sense? I don't know, let's pretend like it makes sense. Naira was visibly relieved, while the DM was obviously annoyed. He said he would have to make up some adjustment, but that he'll be able to make it work. We spent the rest of that session setting up for this story arc. So a few more sessions go by, but the story is underway, and out of game, the DM keeps egging me to ask Naira out for some reason. Keep telling him that she is sweet, but I'm not interested. It started to become really weird when he would narrate to both her and I certain feelings our characters were having towards one another. Her and I both telling him that we don't think it's appropriate, but he keeps insisting. It's important to the story. That's... what a weird twist. Suddenly the DM is playing matchmaker and saying how each of their characters have like the hots for each other. Why? What is the point for any of this? This DM is on something, I just don't know what it is. We were annoyed now that we were both about ready to leave when the story started to pick up. Once again, the party got divided. My character had gone full evil at this point, with Naira trying to appeal to the side of him that was still him. Session ended. Due to work obligations, I ended up missing 2 sessions. Back in these days, I was texting using T9 and social media hadn't been a thing for me. So it was rare that I got to communicate with the other players when I wasn't at my LGS. It just happened one Sunday later, I'm at my LGS getting a pack of magic cards when I bumped into Naira. We catch up for a little bit before she let it slip that she quit the D&D game after the last session I missed. Told it was probably for the best, but asked what the straw was that broke the camel's back. She then proceeded to tell me the DM wrote or read aloud a summary for the end of the session, describing her character and mine became embroiled in passionate romance that ultimately culminated in my turning her into a vampire before I'm slain by the villagers, and now she has to pick up where I left off as the Overlord. She told me that he even did what he could to force her to roleplay it. She hung in there until the conclusion of the session and said that she quit. He's definitely a good storyteller, but I don't want that for my character, not at all. Gotta be freaking kidding me. So I found the DM's phone number and I gave him a call. We proceeded to have a long and explicit conversation about the player consent, how we appreciated him trying to tell a story that he wanted to tell, but that he very much went about it the wrong way, and that neither Naira nor I wanted our characters to be romantically involved. He threw every excuse in the book at me about why it was somehow okay that he did what he did. He said the story was the most important thing. When the story and rules clash, story should win, and he felt the same about player agency. Needless to say, I never played another game he ran, and lost contact with most of the people that were in that game. One thing that really still bothers me is that I have a creeping suspicion that somehow he wanted me to ask her out purely as a vehicle for getting her to cooperate with his story direction. And if that's even remotely true, it's freaking weird. If the story is the most important thing and even more important than player agency, write a damn fucking book. If you're not playing a TTRPG with other players where their input actually matters to the story, then write a book. If you want to play TTRPG, it takes a whole group to tell stories together. It's not DM telling their story and players are just actors in a play like it's some sort of a screenplay. This isn't a book, this isn't screenplay. You're playing fucking D&D or whatever you guys are playing. I think you're playing old D&D. Yeah, D&D 3.0. A storytelling media where everybody cooperates together to tell a story together. It's being told together, not being ham-fisted by some cringe DM that's trying to force some sort of a fake romance so the one girl character becomes the evil overlord of the vampires for whatever. Player characters are not vehicles or accessories for your storytelling, and prioritizing story over player agency and player interaction, like I said, you might as well just write a book at that point. I also wanted to ham-fist some sort of cringe romance where players aren't agreed or aren't consenting to some sort of a romance in the first place. It's just weird. Don't be pushy about it. I get if you want to have romance in your stories. There's better ways to handle storytelling medium like this and romance and stuff, but this, Chief, ain't it. It's just not it. Anyway, cringe stories aside and cringe ham-fisting of story, let's get to the next story for today. Did I overreact? I made a post on another subreddit that I was looking for another game. A newer DM had hit me up and invited me to a game he said would take place in a week's time. Level 8 characters. I was super excited because I've never gotten to start too high. I joined their Discord server and meet the other players. The main issue of focus would be a player I'll call Steve. Steve brought in his girlfriend and another friend, and we had another player who wasn't affiliated but became part of the issue. When I think of the name Steve, I'm imagining the live-action trailer for Minecraft movie as Jack Black as Steve. What a weird trailer, by the way. Good lord. This is a monstrosity. Anyway, let's keep going. The first red flag happened after the DM explicitly laid out some rules and stated we are not to be an evil party. Steve immediately asks, "So what if I want to hurt an NPC for underpaying me?" And it seemed like a joke, but he pursued for an answer. I should clarify, I'm coming off a problem group of murder hobos prior to this and have been seeking a grounded, serious game that didn't fall to the party's whims. Back to the story. So we'll spend a week making our characters, mine being a last minute change to Genie Warlock, while Steve is a scribe wizard. Fast forward to the typical quest of the mayor asking us to go and fight some invaders coming to wreck the village, traveling by boat to enter in the village. I missed the part where the DM said the river cut through the village, so a misunderstanding happened a bit later. Eventually, after spending some money, we head to the river. The fact we traveled made it feel more so that it was outside the village. First thing Steve tries to do is glyph warding a book full of fireballs. I was quick to tell him that you can't move glyph warding, but then I mentioned the DM had vetoed that if he wants. DM asked the party if we all agreed, so he instead got a plank of wood and out a lightning fireball glyph on it, and it managed to hit and kill the first wave of invaders. Eventually it got to my turn, and I wanted to use control water, and Steve, who seemed to act like he knows how the spells work, said I'd wreck the village. This is where the aforementioned mistake came in. It took 20 freaking minutes of back and forth and me explaining spells do what they say. The spell says up to 100 feet, meaning I can't choose its size, but eventually the DM just tried to speed it up and slide my waves wash away the boats, and that the invaders were on shore. I somehow missed that, I guess. So instead I asked, since I didn't know they were already on shore as players, my PC very clearly has eyes, can I retcon an intimidation check? He said yes, for time's sake, so I did it and they all surrendered. Steve has a specific playstyle where things kind of happen a little more on chaotic side, and I'm assuming that's going to be the crux of the issue here in the first place. Maybe it won't, maybe it will, maybe there's going to be a little bit of clashing between OP and Steve, I'm not fully sure. But the one other thing that I would say is arguing at the table over mechanics. Oh my god. Can I just say how devastatingly long that can be sometimes trying to figure out the mechanics. When I'm a DM, I fully understand that I'm not going to be able to remember every single mechanic of how it works, so sometimes it's on the onus of the players to remember how the spells work and how the mechanics work, because I gotta be honest, I'm not going to be able to remember every single mechanic and every single point of how prestidigitation can work. I know it has like 5 or 6 general use cases, but I can't remember all of it. But also have trust in my players to understand their own spell zone mechanics and kind of go off from there. But when it comes to debating different spells and how they work, I try to keep it as fast as possible. Nothing bogs the game down more than talking about the rules of how spells work. It's at this point where things started devolving. I should mention there were 2 invasion sites, so there was a second group of mercenaries. Due to the DM for whatever reason saying only 3 made it to them, Steve got a terrible idea. The first thing Steve does is ask the DM before we can all talk to the mayor to talk privately about what I assume to be backstory stuff. DM mentions things that he could do solo if he wanted, and he chose to keep it secret. Then he looks for a map, which the DM gave him for free. After this we get our reward and asked to go get a barrier tattoo. Steve chimes in with, "Don't you think you're holding up the story?" Oh, dude, that's a rude thing to do. Don't do that to people. Don't just be like, "Hey, how about you don't do that? That's holding up the story." Everybody gets a turn to do stuff if they want to do it, and if the DM is okay with it, then that's fine. It's up to the DM to decide whether like things need to be hurried along. Don't make other players feel terrible by choosing to want to do something for your character and by saying, "Don't you think you're holding up the story?" Dude, I'm shopping over here. Let me buy some armor, you jackass. Let me protect my character a little bit. I was livid at this point, but I told myself maybe he's new and doesn't understand he isn't the main character. Right after this, him and his girlfriend basically take over on a shopping and eating trip just role-playing eating food. I never got to get my tattoo. We all somehow ended up at a tavern even though I said I was shopping, and the other mercenaries were there. Oh, okay, so you can't get a tattoo because it's holding up the story. But Steve and his girlfriend can go in character and do shopping and eating food and stuff. Also, what is the DM doing? If you said you were shopping and getting a tattoo, why isn't the DM communicating with you about getting that tattoo and stuff? I just don't understand what's going on. What is happening here? What is actually freaking happening here, dude? I'm so confused. Steve decided he wants to bully them for their share of the gold because we all got paid the same. He felt that he deserved all their gold. Not the party, just him. And I was the only one in our party that tried to just leave the tavern. He pushes the other party to the point that they want to fight. A Goliath even stood up and said to back off. Steve did not, and the DM said a mage was going to fireball. Now Steve decided people mattered and told the DM this fireball would kill everyone in the tavern. Long story short, Steve kept arguing how that they should be arrested, and he still wanted their gold. So the DM had an elf NPC appear and try to compromise, caving and giving us another 300 gold. This have not been mentioned yet, but I kind of noticed, why is DM kowtowing to Steve? Like so quickly as well. OP wants to go around and get a tattoo? No response. Steve wants to do shopping and eat an RP? Yeah, Steve, you can definitely do that. Steve interacts with different bullies and all the other party wants to leave. Not so fast. Steve, the mage wants to do a fireball, but that'll kill everybody, DM. Oh yeah, you're right. Here, an NPC shows up magically giving you 300 gold to appease my fellow Steve. Like, what is going on here? Why is DM just like almost like a serving on a platter everything that Steve wants? At this point, I couldn't take it anymore. The DM had left to get a drink, and Steve was bragging about how much fun he was having. His girlfriend and the other players fully backed him doing this GTA-style nonsense. The other players I mentioned non-affiliated. He was playing Sun Wukong as a glory paladin, so of course he was happy to fight the mercenaries. I had such a sour taste in my mouth. The second the DM arrived, everyone was laughing and happy, but I just said, "I'm sorry everyone, I'm gonna go," and ended the call. Left the server and told the DM that I can't play with a party like this. Told him he was amazing, but this wasn't the kind of experience I was looking for. Shortly after, he went offline. We had played about 4 hours, but the night game didn't feel over. Think I killed the game for them by doing this, but he said everything was fine. Honestly think if I stayed, me and Steve would have fought. I don't think staying would have been a good idea.
Hi, Editor Morrow here filling in because I had a little bit of extra thoughts about the whole story, but first of all, can I just say, Windows updates, I almost literally was not able to use my microphone on my entire setup for some reason after a stupid ass update went out of the way. I find some things really weird and suspicious in this situation. Why isn't the DM actively being involved with OP whenever they want to get their barrier tattoo or just do general shopping? But like, if Steve wants to go on a shopping spree and like get drinks and roleplay themselves just having a party, having a gaff throughout the whole thing, that's perfectly fine. It's like, yeah, Steve, you could totally do that. And then suddenly when Steve wants to actually get involved with stuff, just magically makes things appear, like an elf trying to imprison the mercenaries for one to throw a fireball and rewarding them with 300 gold. I feel like what ended up happening here is that OP maybe already joined a clique, right? They already had Steve, Steve's girlfriend, Steve's buddies, and the DM was probably Steve's buddy as well. And they already got used to having fun with Steve, and they were used to a particular type of fun. OP was looking for something else entirely. He didn't want to be a groupie to Steve and Steve's antics. He just wanted to be a player. OP's fun, however, doesn't mean to kowtow to the one guy that's basically the main character, the main protagonist here, that everybody, including the DM, kowtows to, and therefore they decide to leave, which is a very fair thing to do. If you, the viewer, por exemple, decide to join a group that you wanted to play games with, but it turns out it's a kind of a clique game where you need to really mesh with people in order to really have any sort of fun or get any sort of participation, then obviously, yeah, I think most of us would just want to just dip out and leave. People wouldn't want to stick around for something where we don't feel like we participate in it, which is kind of a depressing thing because I have some friends that are literally playing games where they're not even playing as player characters, just NPCs. Anyway, OP, I'm glad you left, and hopefully you can find yourself a more fun game where you can actually have some sort of meaningful interaction without a guy named Steve.
And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.